Welcome. I am Freya Bell, also known as Penguin Ball in some parts of the internet. I am a moderator at Worldsmiths, which is a speculative fiction online Discord writing group. And we are here today to do some brainstorming. We are going to brainstorm a short story using the Story Engine prompt cards. I have the whole fancy deck here. They are amazing. I backed the Kickstarter for them and no regrets for that money spent. So this here is the sci-fi expansion pack. So we're going to be brainstorming a science fiction story today. And you see here there are 5 different stacks of cards. And we are going to flip some over here and see what we get. We're going completely random unless something really doesn't work. But then we will take those, do some mind mapping to get the ideas flowing, experiment, see where we're going to end up with our story. And then once that is done, we will look at this through the 7-point story structure and put it into a chart so that we can have an outline. So without further ado, we are starting here with our agent card. A fanatic. Okay, we can work with that. A fanatic wants to restore the lost memory of a harvest. That I'm going to re-roll that one. That one doesn't really make sense to me. Restore the memory of a... Maybe it's the restore the memory that's tripping me up here. Let's see. Yeah, this one I like better. There's no rules. We can flip as many cards as we want. Okay, I'm going to go with these. A fanatic wants to make a power grab with a set of keys. They will be blacklisted. But the below black will fall on their closest friend. That's a good one. Okay. And we have this qualifier here, the aspect card. We can put this on any of these that we want. So if we want it to be a quiet fanatic, a forbidden set of keys, we can do that. Let's see. A quiet fanatic. Let's go with that. So I'm going to put these off to the side here. Okay, so we are going to start mind mapping next. I'm going to put these at the top. We can just barely see them here. All right. A fanatic. Okay, fanatic. So with mind mapping, what you're doing is you're starting with a word in a bubble here, and then you're just going off and seeing what you think of. So for a fanatic, I think devoted. I think maybe a little crazy. Hard to rationalize or reason with. Hard to reason with. And, well, no other ideas are coming together quite yet, so let's move on to set of keys. I'm thinking kind of old-fashioned. Like, these are the sci-fi keys, but when I think of keys, I think of old skeleton key. But it doesn't have to be a skeleton key. It could be like sci-fi. You can do anything. It could be a biometrically coded key and it's stored in somebody's eyeball. Retina key. Key could be knowledge. You know, the key to understanding something. And spelling is not important when it comes to mind maps. That is important to remember. What else keys could be? Well, I think that's good for now. Let's see. Blowback. So blowback might fall on the friend, so that would inspire regret. It might inspire revenge on the part of the friend. Closest friend. Uh, Regret's not even the strongest word we could use here. We might want despair. Friend might be a loved one or a family member. And power grab. Makes me think of greed, taking advantage of the situation. Situation. Need. Why do they need the power? Power grab means there's a power vacuum, perhaps. Vacuum. A power grab might imply competition. So as I'm doing this, I'm getting some vague ideas here as we're going through. We have our fanatic who really wants something, power. Why do they want the power? That's the thing we're going to have to decide. Quiet, that's an interesting one too. Again, spelling does not count. Unseen, unheard, unnoticed. Oh god, my spelling is atrocious today. And that connects back up to the fanatic, and the power grab and the set of keys are connected, and all of this equals the blowback. I can hear my my garage opening. I believe my husband's home. Sorry for the pause there. So, what else are we going to do? Well, let's see. I feel like I'm missing something. It's that Y that is bothering me. So I'm going to just draw another card here. Let's see. We'll draw another aspect card. Immortal. Interesting. So it could be that our fanatic wants to grab power, wants the keys to immortality, perhaps, so that they are able to grab power. I think we could work at that. Immortal. Okay, shuffle those back down so we can still see them. All right. I feel like we have the shape of an idea here now. So I'm going to switch over our piece of paper. Okay, and this is where Dan Wells' 7-point story structure comes in. Now, Dan Wells didn't create 7-point structure, but he did popularize it in his YouTube video and on he's part of the Writing Excuses podcast, and I know a lot of people are familiar with them. But if you're not familiar, go check them out because Writing Excuses is fantastic. So I'm going to write up here 7-point story structure at World Smith, so you remember who we are. All right, 7-point story structure begins with, actually, best way to do this. Sorry, I don't have my notes open. One moment. 7-point. There we go. All right. So the first thing in the 7-point story structure is the hook. And sorry, my dog just made a weird noise. This is the starting point. The next is turning point 1. And this introduces the conflict. And bridges the gap between the hook, number 1, and the midpoint, which is number 4. Three, pinch point number 1. And apply pressure. And we also often introduce antagonist. So this is where things get worse. It's not quite the worst they could be, but it is pretty bad. 4 is the midpoint, and this is where the character has to make a choice. Are they going to keep going? Are they going to stop? Are they going to give up? This is where they go from inactive to proactive. Okay. Anyway, you know what it says. And this is also the point where we move from the midpoint then down to the resolution, which is point number 7. So you can kind of see the structure here we have at the end. Let me just write this in real quick. Turning point number 2. Point number 2. So hook, midpoint, resolution. And these bits here in the middle are just what is getting us to our 3 major tent poles here. But it'll come out more once we get to the rest of this. So turning point number 1. Oh, I got those backwards. My bad. Sorry. Pinch point number 1 is number right here. So yes, apply even more pressure. Darkest moment. So if you're familiar with the hero's journey, darkest moment is where everything seems lost. It seems like there's nothing they can do. Their goal is impossible to achieve. But we find in turning point number 2 that they have the power. Something they've learned along the way about themselves, about their abilities, gives them the ability to do what they need to do. They have all the information that they need to succeed and get their goals. Which leads us to the climax of the story. This is where it all comes together. And this is where the main character will either fail or they will succeed, depending on the tone of the story you are setting here. And one thing that Dan Wells talked about in his lecture was that the hook and the resolution are opposites of each other. So your character's daily life, where they are, will be the opposite of the resolution. So let's just make a chart here and talk about that some more. Okay, so the hook, we have, I'm just pulling this back out so I can reference it. we have our fanatic. And they are the quiet fanatic. What Dan Wells suggests to do is to take your starting point and go skip over all the other steps and go right to the resolution and think about what the opposite state of the hook would be. So you don't have to be too literal. Like it's not going to be, oh, they're a loud charity giver or something. I don't know. But they would be somebody who has power. With no power, because that is what their goal is. They're trying to get power. So they have power, and that leads us to thinking backwards and forwards. How do they get there? Well, the midpoint would be deciding to stay or go. Do they want to? Because we have this card here, the blowback will fall on their friend. Do they decide to continue, even if their friend suffers? Well, I guess we'll find out if they do or not as we continue plotting here. So, introduces the conflict. The conflict is that they don't have the keys. They want the keys, they need the keys, they are trying to become immortal. So what do they do to get there? Don't have keys, and they continue to not get the keys, perhaps. Can't get keys. Let's see, as an interesting thing we could do, maybe it's the friend that has the keys. Can't get keys, friend has keys, won't give them up. Let's see here. So we can continue, and they do decide to continue, so their friend suffers. Okay, so we have our quiet fanatic with no power. They are trying to make a power grab, but to get the power, they need keys that will make them immortal. But if they get those keys, the fallback will fall on their closest friend. So we decided that the turning point is the conflict. They can't get the keys. Then they can't get the keys because the friend has them and won't give them up. They decide to steal the keys. But in doing so, the friend suffers. Perhaps, let's see, how would they suffer? If we're going with the sci-fi route, they are injured when they, let's say, they're stored in a device of some kind, like a whatever those things are called, the little pods that go under your skin, like the RFID trackers, is injured when the keys are taken. But they are a ruthless fanatic, even if they are quiet. So even though their friend is suffering, they now have the power, and they use the information to become immortal. And this allows them to defeat their enemy. Actually, I'll put that down here. defeats enemies / grabs power. Now this is all very vague look at things. We haven't really discussed the specifics of what these scenes might look like. So we have some plot points, but not really a story quite yet. So the hook, what does normal day look like for a quiet fanatic who wants to make a power grab? He is sitting in his spaceship. We're going stereotypical sci-fi. Or maybe spaceport. Let's go spaceport. Spaceport. Home, and he is plotting. Okay, maybe let's say he knows the friend has the keys the entire time. In which case, the second point here is he calls friend, tells him his plan. For a power grab. Friend says no, hangs up. So then he steals the keys, goes to friend's house, forcibly cuts out a data chip. And returns home. Say there's an existential moment as he is cleaning. Oh, God. Remember the spelling. Spelling doesn't count. Existential moment as he cleans blood off hands, but he gets over angst and uploads chip to his brain. We'll work on the world building and the science as we're writing, but for now that is good enough for an outline. At least for me, I like to just have a vague idea of what's happening in the story, develop it later as I'm writing, and then again in editing. So with his chip, let's say it's maybe we'll forget this immortality thing. Maybe it just gives him info to bypass a firewall, and he takes down his enemy. So there we go, some more specifics. This will give us an idea of where we can start, and from here we can go and start adding in more specific, as my mind totally blanks, more specific scene ideas. So we can start picturing what he looks like. I always think of fanatics as being middle-aged, so I'm going to go with a young man. Maybe he's not your, like, when I think of a fanatic, I think of somebody, crazy-eyed, maybe sunken cheeks, not looking so good because they're so driven, they forget to eat, they forget to shower. So we'll say it's a young man, handsome, matic, in a quiet way. And the friend is like a sister, younger, she's a hacker, and They grew up together. Let's see, spaceport. Let's say it's dirty, small, lots of competition. So our young, quiet fanatic wants to improve his living situation. It's a simple goal, simple need. He lives in a small, dirty spaceport where crumbs are fought over, so he needs to defeat some enemy who has all the power, like a mafia boss or something. So, friend is like a sister, also grew up under this mafia boss, but she's afraid of the mafia boss. Cool. So friend says no, hangs up, but she's loyal enough, doesn't tell on him. I'm just gonna, this is part of this one here, just because I'm running out of space. So it is a data chip in her arm. She hacked the information. To mafia bosses. Banking info, we'll say. Okay. It's not immortal anymore. We're going to say to get rich. Okay. Do I have any free paper here? Okay. So, move this off to the side. Going a little further this time than I did in my last video. The first thing a story needs is characters. So we have 3 characters, really. We have our fanatic, we have our friend, and we have our mafia boss. And we've already said that he is young, handsome, charismatic. His main need is to improve living situation. Friend, younger, female, she is a hacker, and she just wants to live quietly. Mafia boss, we don't need to know too much about him. He's older, let's say woman, just make it more interesting. Older woman who controls spaceport. Oh, I've gotten awfully sideways here. Let me adjust that for you. Okay, older woman who controls spaceport, and she wants power and control. So we see here how each of these conflicts with the other, and this is where the story's main drive is coming through. So we have somebody who wants to improve their living situation, even if it requires them to steal from somebody else or to betray a friend. The friend wants to live quietly, so she's not going to help either of them. and the mafia boss wants to control them both. That's pretty well set up there. So our outline. We have our story spine here. I'm just going to flip this over so we can have both on the screen at the same time. Okay, so scene number 1 is the fanatic, and I hate naming, by the way, so I'm just calling them these names until I'm actually writing, and then I'll probably just use fantasy name generator and pick one and just run with it. That's a side note. Okay, so the fanatic is at home, plotting. So let's see, what does plotting look like? He is on a video call with a different friend. We'll just catch the tail end of a conversation, who also tells him no. Who also can't help him. There's no jobs, let's say. So the fanatic then has no job, has no money, has no way of improving a life situation, which is something he is obsessed with. So he, in turn, decides, maybe he's talking to a plant or something to give him an audience, decides to steal from mafia boss. And I should probably have a try-fail cycle in here somewhere. So maybe he tries to break into boss's home, fails, 4. So he calls his friend. This is the main character friend, to complain about it. Friend says they accidentally hacked the boss. I'm picturing this friend as kind of a frenetic, can't keep her keyboard still enough to not get herself into trouble kind of person here. So that's how she accidentally managed to hack somebody's bank account. So number 5, the next thing they do is the fanatic demands the details. Friend says no. And hangs up. 6, fanatic goes to her house to convince her. She says no again. He gets physical, loses temper, and cuts her data chip out. He's not a nice guy. He's our protagonist, but he's not a nice guy. 8, runs home, uploads info to his own chip. And I think I'm going to switch the order here of some of the things, from the blood to after he takes down his enemy, just for the final punch to him be like, oh no, what did I do? Staring at his bloody hands kind of thing. So he then breaks through security, and steals money from mafia boss. Boss. 10. And briefly celebrates, but stops when he sees his friend's blood. And maybe an ending line now of like, am I happy now? All right, there we have it. That is an outline story. We have a sci-fi story where we started with prompts. Well, I guess we didn't quite work in just putting these back up here. Sorry for the fiddling around. Okay, so the blowback. So the friend, no, I'm fine without developing it. I was going to say that the blowback could be more emphasized on a friend. They could be arrested, or perhaps the mafia boss will track it down to them, but that could be a dialogue line in there from the friend saying, oh, what will happen to me now? That kind of thing. So there we have it. That is one short story planned, and if you like, you are more than free to take this, write your own short story. I'm not sure if I'm going to be doing this one myself, but we will see. I have far too many stories I want to write by this point. And if you have any feedback about this video, please let me know. This is a new channel, so like, subscribe, hit the bell, all the good stuff, and thank you so much for watching today.